When you think of iconic Canadian cities, Ottawa and Toronto are right at the top of the list. You've got Parliament Hill on one hand and the CN Tower on the other. But what you might not realize is that they're powered by completely different economic engines. So what's really going on in their job markets? Well, the data tells a pretty fascinating story.
So where are the jobs? That's the big question, right? We're about to dive into a whole bunch of job posting data from the beginning of 2026 to get a super clear picture of what's happening on the ground in both of these powerhouses.
All right, first stop, Toronto. We all hear it called Canada's economic capital, but what does that actually mean for someone looking for a job? Let's take a look at what the numbers have to say.
Okay, right off the bat, you can see one thing just completely jumps out. I mean, look at that chart. While there's a mix of industries, that one single huge slice of the pie tells you pretty much everything you need to know about Toronto's economic identity.
And here it is, the number that defines it all, 29.2%. That is the share of all job postings in Toronto that come from just one place, finance and insurance. Let that sink in for a second. That's nearly 1 out of every 3 jobs advertised in the entire city.
So let's drill down into the details here. Not only is finance and insurance way out in front at 29.2%, but you can see it's also projected to keep growing. Meanwhile, healthcare, it's a distant second at 13.4%, and it looks like it's actually expected to dip a little. After that, you've got professional services, retail, and education rounding out the top 5.
Okay, let's hop on the 417 and head over to the nation's capital. Now, you might think Ottawa's job market is all about government, right? But the reality is so much more complex. And the story really begins when you realize that Ottawa is way bigger than just the city itself.
See, to really get the full picture, our analysis doesn't just stop at the city limits. We're looking at the entire Ottawa catchment area. That includes the surrounding counties like Lanark, Leeds and Grenville, Prescott and Russell, and Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. This wider view is absolutely crucial to understanding the region's true economy.
And boom, right away, we see a massive difference. Inside the city of Ottawa proper, the top industry isn't finance and it's not even government work. It's educational services at 16.2%, and right behind it is retail trade at 15%. This is a completely different economic DNA from what we just saw in Toronto. And here's something you won't see in the Toronto data: the region's deep bilingual roots. With huge Francophone communities, especially in places like Prescott and Russell, being able to speak both English and French isn't just a nice-to-have skill. It's a major competitive advantage for pretty much everyone. It is, like they say, a truly valuable asset.
And when we zoom out to those surrounding counties, you see all these distinct little local economies. Leeds and Grenville, for example, is showing really strong growth. Prescott and Russell, it's a picture of remarkable stability. And then you have Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, where retail is just the undisputed king, making up a massive 23.6% of all job postings there.
So we've looked at each city on its own. And now, it's time for the main event, the head-to-head comparison. Let's put them side by side and really see just how different these two job markets are. And believe me, the contrast is pretty striking.
You know, the difference really couldn't be clearer. Toronto's story is all about one thing: finance and insurance. Ottawa's story is much more diverse, led by industries like education and a really strong retail base. These are just two fundamentally different ways of building an economy. This chart right here really puts it all into perspective. Just look at the finance and insurance sector. Toronto's share of the job market, at almost 30%, is about 3 times larger than what you see in the entire Ottawa region. That is a massive, massive gap.
But now, watch what happens when we flip the script. When we look at educational services, the roles are completely reversed. You can see how Ottawa's economy is clearly anchored by this sector in a way that Toronto's just isn't. It really goes to show how these two cities have specialized in very different fields.
So we've thrown a lot of numbers around. But what does any of this mean for you? Because data is one thing, but turning it into smart decisions, well, that's what really matters. Let's break down the key takeaways.
Honestly, the takeaways are pretty straightforward. If you're a finance pro, it's no contest. Toronto offers a massive, booming market. If you're bilingual, your skills give you a serious competitive edge in the Ottawa region. And for those of you in retail or education, both cities have good options, but Ottawa definitely has a much higher concentration of jobs in those fields.
And all of this leaves us with one final, and I think really fascinating question to think about. On the one hand, you've got Toronto's highly specialized, high-powered financial engine. And on the other, you have Ottawa's more diverse, public sector-adjacent economy. Two very different models for success. So, which one do you think is better built for the future?